So let's go ahead and jump into the next question. The next question comes from Miss Iris People.
Hey, favorite guest or favorite question submitter.
Definitely, definitely. And she writes, "Hey guys, so with it looks like Bob Chapek learned he was fired the day it was announced. According to reports, he was made aware of his firing through the media outlets, and no one from Disney gave him a call.
Ooh, ouch.
What do you think about this news?" Well, thank you for your question, Iris. For what you guys don't know, literally in the last 24 to 36 hours, Disney had a major shakeup. And for those who don't know, I live in Orlando, Florida, so Disney is freaking everywhere. And I was at a Publix, just grocery shopping, and I heard somebody say, "Oh my God, Bob Chapek has been fired," and I was like, "That don't sound right." So I looked at my phone and I saw it, and I was like, "Oh shit, this is really real."
Wild.
And I was blown away. I was like, well, and the first thing I said, oh, John Campy is probably really happy right now. He's probably really happy right now with this decision. But what you guys don't know, literally over the last 24 to 36 hours, Bob Chapek was relieved of his duties as CEO. Bob Iger has returned back only for a 2 year minimum 2 year minimum program, not program, but just action until he transitions somebody else to lead. And once he's done with his 2 years, according to reports, it's being said that I guess the people at Disney were not happy about everything that was going on content wise with Bob Chapek at the helm of CEO. Now, I have been critical of Bob Chapek in terms of the things he's done at the theme parks and also what he's done with content. Apparently, he launched an ad supported Disney Plus tier, which is the same price as the regular Disney Plus tier.
Oh,
So
sign me up.
yeah, like I'm like, so I'm gonna sign up for Disney Plus just to watch ads at the same price as the regular one. Yeah, that made no sense. And according to the reports today that I saw in Hollywood Reporter, that Bob Chapek is claiming that he found out he was fired through the media. He's saying that he found out yesterday, just like everybody else, and nobody from Disney gave him a call warning him about him being fired. Now, my thoughts on it, Iris, is basically this. Bob Chapek is lying his ass off.
Mm.
He's lying his ass off. And here's the reason why I know he's lying his ass off. There is no way in the world after you get your contract renewed, then they fire you on the spot and they put it out to the media and that's how you find out. There's no I'm not saying Disney is a perfect company, but they have their shit in order. And I will say this, Campia made a point yesterday that I later went and back and asked one of my friends who works at Marvel Marketing. And Campia said, which this is not, I don't know how true this is, but this is what Campia said. He said that the different heads of the different departments of Disney, from the theme parks, Disney movie animation, Pixar, Marvel, and Lucasfilm, went to the board and said they had an issue with Bob Chapek leading the helm and changing all the different things that were happening at the different departments at Disney. When I asked the guy who works at marketing for Marvel, is that a true statement? He said he couldn't confirm or deny it, but he said that his boss kept having a lot of meetings with the board members about the changing of the guard. And he said that for certain reasons that he can't explain, so he doesn't lose his job, there were a lot of times where Bob Chapek even threatened some certain people in his department that they were going to lose their jobs because he felt like that they were necessary. He felt like more business people should be in the marketing world, not actual people who went to school for marketing. So when he told me that, I was like, well, damn. I was like, it seemed like this dude didn't know what he was doing. But when I heard the news, I remember sharing it with Jeremy and Ian on our group chat. And I was just like, I was actually floored, but it actually makes sense. And I'm gonna tell you why it makes sense. And this, I know I don't want to make it seem like one has anything to do with the other, but David Zaslav got Alan Horn to come back to Warner Brothers, and it seems like they're about to start cranking out top notch content just by the moves that they're making.
Mm.
I can honestly say this last couple of years of what Disney's been able to put out from Lucasfilm to even Marvel and even Pixar, it's been kind of substandard. So with Zaslav making major moves and the board is like, listen, like we can't have our competitors outshine us. We want Iger to come back. And then also I do think the board members were probably pissed at Iger because remember, Iger was the one who appointed Chapek. He gave us Chapek. So
Yep.
they were probably like, listen, we need you to come back and get rid of this dude. Like this dude has no idea what he's doing. We're losing billions of dollars. And I didn't even realize this until yesterday. You guys realize we haven't had a Star Wars movie in like the last 2 to 3 years. Well, we've gotten TV content, but we haven't got a Star Wars movie. And Star Wars is rooted in the theater experience. So I'm actually flabbergasted by this news. Jeremy, you heard the same thing that I heard. What do you think about Big Iger coming back, Bob Iger coming back to his role? And what do you think about Chapek learning, quote unquote, that he found out about his firing in the media, just like everybody else?
I wasn't in the grocery store like you. As a matter of fact, I think Victoria told me yesterday when she got home, and I was surprised that she was the one breaking it to me because I'm normally more plugged into that kind of stuff. But the fact that she knew just shows how major this news is because Disney, like maybe Marvel, I don't even want to say that. Marvel and Star Wars might be a little more niche than Disney, but Disney is like in every household in America kind of situation. Marvel and Star Wars might be as well, but even more than that. And because Disney owns those two things as well as Pixar, it makes them so omnipresent in the world of entertainment that there's not a person in the world that this doesn't probably somehow affect, right? Like it's crazy how substantial this is. And I didn't think about the correlation between what's happening at the House of the Mouse in addition to what's happening over at Warner Discovery. That's wild. And it might actually play more of a factor than I would have thought of. So over the last year, Disney stocks are down 40%. This news that Bob Chapek was stepping down and being replaced with Bob Iger spiked their market shares or market value up like 8% immediately. We are Florida residents. As you said, you live in Orlando. I live here in Pensacola, but make that trek fairly often, every couple of years or so. Are you aware of all of the political stuff that's been happening under Bob Chapek's leadership?
Yeah. So what Jeremy's referring to, like like for instance, with the whole "don't say gay" or some of the LGBT slash Republican stuff that's been going on here in the state of Florida, Bob Chapek is actually kind of somewhat in agreement of it. That's why even here, I'll never forget it. There were Disney employees protesting that. So yes, there were a lot of that going on.
Let me, and I am not an expert on this, but let me speak to what I saw is actually that Bob Chapek has been an outspoken ally of the gay rights, not an advocate of Ron DeSantis and his desire to get rid of it.
Right, that's what I meant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what that caused was a lot of contention between the Disney parks and the zoning of the Disney parks versus our government. There was something, and again, I'm not an expert on this, but essentially there were like sanitation and taxes on property that were being paid by Disney that would basically help neighboring towns financially because they'd kind of seeped into so many areas outside of just Kissimmee and things like that. But DeSantis decided that he was going to revoke some of their special privileges, which would impact financially all of these areas surrounding the parks. And all that said to say, again, I don't know the intricacies of it. What I do know is that the Florida government was going to war with Bob Chapek because Bob Chapek's progressive ideals were not only like, they basically said they were going to be more openly gay in Disney media to counteract the fact that, like you said, there have been historically gay people felt like Disney was not as much of an ally as they should be, because Disney is like a lot of times queer coded, but never openly gay. So they like started putting kisses and same-sex kisses in Lightyear. They had the kind of thing with Gaston and LeFou. So anyways, all that said to say, Bob Chapek was a much more political figure, which made him a much more divisive figure. If you're on the side of his progressive ideology, then maybe this was a win for those values. However, if you are more in the conservative camp and you believe that Disney is family oriented, then do you want these cartoons pushing the gay agenda into your household? So it became like a line in the sand and people were on either side. Bob Iger, I feel like, was really good at navigating that, and that he kind of was able to play both sides. And does that make him an idealist? No. Does it mean that he has real strong values? No. But as a corporation, I wonder if we should be imbuing our values when you can kind of just, like, for a long time, Disney gave to conservative donors and gave to liberal donors. And it was kind of smart because they were able to kind of have their cake and eat it too.
Right.
So while my recounting of what actually happened in Florida is probably extremely murky, that was the kind of the way that I understood it, is that Chapek was a much more divisive figure. Dude, I don't know that there's any possible way that Chapek could have found out through the media. To your point, that's wild, right?
That makes no sense at all. Like, out of all of the stuff that he's been connected to, I'm like, you mean to tell me that? And I want to point out, before I let Jeremy finish, I want to point out what he said is not impossible. There have been actors who found out they got jobs because of what was reported. So I'm not saying that that doesn't happen, but that's an actor in comparison to a Disney exec. You mean to tell me? Because when you get fired on that level, you have to sign things. They don't just fire you and they put it out in the media. So, but yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. No, that's actually a great point. So I don't know how much that the wokeness argument is such a small picture compared to this overarching thing. I don't know how much involvement Bob Chapek had in what was happening at Marvel with Phase 4. I know Kevin Feige is actually the guy that oversees that. I don't know how much Bob Chapek's input mattered when it came to Lucasfilm and Star Wars, because we know Kathleen Kennedy's over that. I don't know how much of Bob Chapek's influence was involved in Pixar, because is it Lasseter? I know it was Lasseter for a long time. I'm not sure who it is now. Because all of those houses have kind of been trending downward. When you look at Turning Red and you look at Lightyear, these were not big performers. And don't get me wrong, Pixar is not always huge box office, but trending downward. When you look at Star Wars, personally, I'm glad that there hasn't been a Star Wars movie in the theater in a couple years. I say they should wait even longer. Andor is the best Star Wars I think I've ever seen, and it's on Disney Plus. So if you want to watch good Star Wars for adults, I highly recommend checking out Andor. It's not super popular, but it's super freaking good. But again, like, we had The Force Awakens, which was loved, and then it just started trending downwards. So they've had all of these massive investments starting to decline over time. So bringing in Iger was the obvious choice because under Iger's leadership, everything flourished. Like, it's amazing. It cannot be overstated how much Disney rose to prominence under the leadership of Bob Iger. You know, they are a corporation, and I agree with what you said. It's like, I don't think that they're super ethical. I don't think that they're super, they're shrewd. They try to do things like copyright happy birthday or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, they're trying to get their money, but I also think that they know how to navigate the public sphere for the most part. Even if Bob Chapek didn't seem to as well, like, Disney's not going to be able to let go of the guy that Bob Iger put in that position in the first place without him knowing. Like, to your point about meetings and stuff, did they like not bump into each other in the hall while all of this thing was going down? I don't know whether they did or not, but yeah, Bob Chapek, peace out. You were a divisive figure that didn't really seem to do the brand of Disney really any favors. And Bob Iger, I think, is he's the dude. You know, he is to Disney, the corporation, what Kevin Feige is to Marvel. So I think this, I don't know if it's going to make Marvel better or Star Wars better or Pixar better, but I think it is going to, as a whole, help the brand out.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree with Jeremy. I do think it's going to help the brand out. But to address one thing he said, like, Chapek was involved with a lot of decision making amongst the Marvel, Pixar, and Star Wars content that's come out. Like, for instance, there are certain things that Kevin Feige wasn't allowed to do in certain projects. Same thing with Kathleen Kennedy. I remember that Disney Investor Day call. There were some movies that were announced that later on have not been made. They've been pushed on the far side, and we don't even know if they're going to get made or not. And that has a lot to do with Chapek, who decided to move their schedule. Also, let's keep in mind, Chapek was the one person who decided he's not going to pay Scarlett Johansson the money that she was owed because she decided to put her movie on Disney Plus. That was not a Kevin Feige decision. That was a decision.
Yeah, good call
that he made. And I remember reading a report, and I don't know how true this is, and I have nothing to back this up, but I believe Kevin Feige was going to leave. He was like, listen, if this shit keeps happening, I'm out. Like, sue me. Like, I'm going to leave. And I would say Kevin Feige is probably the one person at Marvel you don't want to piss off. He's made that company like over $30 billion just in content alone. That's not including the merchandising that comes with the content. So personally speaking, Chapek, I won't say that he's a terrible person because I don't know him personally, but I do think that he was not the right fit for this. So it's good to see that Bob Iger coming back. Hopefully he does a good enough job where whoever his successor is can continue on that path. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think about Bob Chapek learning that he got fired in the media like everyone else did? Well, which I seriously doubt. What are you guys thinking about that? And what do you think about Bob Iger coming back to Disney? Just jump into the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts.